This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 177.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another or podcast episode. Today, we're talking to someone who I've worked with in the past, and he was interviewing for a sales engineering job. A bunch of mistakes were made from both sides and learned a lot from it, some horror stories. And we're going to talk about that in the second half of the episode. So my guest today his name is VB. I'm not going to try to mention his first name or say his real first name because I will butcher it. But VB is currently a new product manager at a large company. He was approached to be an SE at another large company, and he went through the interview process. And we're going to talk about the process and how it went and what was good, what was bad. And then we're going to talk about the mistakes that were done, which led to him not accepting the position. And what we can learn from them and how we can not do them going forward. And some of these mistakes are kind of common, especially for people outside the SE world. And how about, let's just jump into the show and you'll see what I mean. How you doing, VP? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ramsey. Thanks, Benny, for having me here.
It's our pleasure. So Benny knows nothing about you. You and I have talked in the past, and I don't have any notes whatsoever for Benny to actually go on. So if you'd like to help him out, maybe you can tell us about who you are today and what's your journey been like to get to where you are.
Sure. So yeah, and even Ramsey, that the time I think we talked, I don't know how deep did we went into my introductions and all. So I'll go a little over here. So almost a decade back, I came to US. I did my bachelor's in engineering in India. Came here to US, studied computer science, master's in telecommunications with some computer science as well, and graduated in 2012. Ever since that, I did an internship in Denver, Colorado, but my major work started when I was here in St. Louis, where I'm right now. I joined a managed hosting services company as a hosting engineer into their, working in data centers, network engineering kind of work. And most of my experience has been with this company. Our company itself grew a lot, through various acquisitions and mergers that happened, and through various promotions or organically, my role has changed as well. I started as an engineer, took up some role in product as well, in product engineering. And the last 5 years have been a lot into consulting and a lot of pre-sales activity work that happens. So my team, what I do on a day-to-day basis is doing architecture, transformational projects for our customers, into cloud networking, into a lot of products that my company. So I work for Lumen, which was previously CenturyLink. A lot of people know of, and some people know CenturyLink. Some people are more aware of Level 3, which was another big provider. But ultimately now the whole big rebranding that happened a couple months back, and it's called Lumen now. So I work for them in the professional services consulting division as a lead architect. My work title is not pre-sales as such, but a lot of my activities is to work with pre-sales to make sure we close those deals. Some of my work is also in the delivery and executional stage as well, when we actually close the deals. But a lot of work that I do is to make sure, enable our sales team in selling the newer products and offerings that we have, as well as making sure the largest of the clients that we are serving, we can help them in any capacity of the products that we have.
Okay. So I think we're going to go a little bit further as well. But so a lot of pre-sales people complain that they get the information secondhand from their account managers, and they're usually wrong. do professional services and consultants who work with pre-sales engineers, do you guys complain about pre-sales engineers not giving you the right information, or are we usually better at providing that?
Yeah. So I'll say, it all depends upon case by case basis. For the largest customers, I don't see that. I see a lot of discovery calls that have happened, from the pre-sales teams that have already been done. And the time it comes to us, they do have some good, credible information for us to digest and chew upon. That could be in the form of a network diagram, or it could be in the form of, what we generally do is we have some templatized formats that the customer needs to fill or the account team needs to fill. And we just generally make sure that not every time that information can be filled, but at least for the largest of the customers or the bigger deals that we have, we do get some kind of, understanding before we come and talk to the customer. But then there are times where, there are some smaller deals where, either customer does not provide that information, but we are always on the hook of giving them a proposal based upon, like kind of, I would say, zero information or something. And that's tough. That's tough because, we are asked to give a proposal to a customer. And, half of the time they say, hey, what's the price gonna be? I said, I'm not concerned right now about the price. I'm more concerned about, solving the real problem that this customer has. We can always talk about the pricing and things later. But they are like, hey, let's give a price to the customer. And, half of the time, I see a lot of deals just, falling because you're not trying to understand the real problem there first, that this customer that you're trying to solve for.
Totally. And to just that last little point there as well, it's pretty hard when you just kind of throw a price out to anybody to sell the value on the price before you even have a chance to really understand what value you're actually giving. So really kind of diving into understanding what their problems are, make that price just that much more meaningful. So I think that's probably a better approach that you're taking there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm trying to understand the dynamics between you and the sales engineers and the account management. Generally speaking, for smaller companies, sales engineers work with account managers, they create a proposal. But it seems that with bigger companies, there's a third layer. Like, so there's the account manager and then the SE and then the architect or consultant. How do you guys work? You work with SEs, you said, and sales teams. Where's the delineation? Is that the word? Delineation between the different roles. 3 immigrants walked into a bar, they can't say a word. So what is the delineation for the different roles?
Yeah, so here's the interesting story, right? That, a lot of times, a lot of products that companies sell, they are very standardized, right? So sales teams know the ins and outs of those products and they can, create those proposals, architecture by themselves. But then, as the companies grow bigger, they do serve those standardized products, but then there are larger customers who are asking for very customized based offerings. So they're asking for either professional services help to do some kind of thing, or they are wanting to work, they're wanting us to work with a partner that we have no clue about, or we don't have a standardized offering on. In that case, the sales teams, are leaning towards, more consulting and kind of a white glove service. And then that's where, they want to lean in the architects from the professional services team to build a proposal for the customer. So gather what the customer needs. Could be, let's just say a distributed service application that they're building in a centralized cloud somewhere, right? But they don't have the way to reach from a data center towards that cloud. And can you help that customer do that? That's where the sales team reach out to us, where either from the sales and account team, we get those answers, or directly work with the customer to understand everything that they need. And that's where we give them a proposal of a high level design that we are envisioning to build during the professional services statement of work kind of a thing. So most of the deals that happen, at least from our group, happens through a statement of work. It's pure consulting work. We understand what this customer wants, what the deliverables will look like. Can this be done in a 12-week period, 16-week period? What will we be accountable for to doing it? So that kind of work needs to be done. And then a lot of times what also happen is the products that the the companies like Lumen are selling, they don't come with a lot of hand holding into it. They are products that are being sold to the customers, but they are not coming with a lot of professional services help, not just only from the product standpoint, but also from the customer standpoint. And then that's where, they lean into professional services to, literally have a person on the customer side to adopt that product end to end.
And when you're talking about product, we're talking routers, switches, that sort of thing. We're talking networking at that point.
Yeah, it could be routers, it could be services like security services, or SD-WAN services. So Lumen is a largest WAN provider. So
Okay.
on a
So SD gateways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So physical equipment. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I used to work for Alcatel-Lucent.
Mhm.
I was a network design engineer.
Yeah.
So, and the way the sales work was, there was an account manager and a sales engineer who then would use what is called a solution consultant, who would then use a POC engineer to do the demos and all that. And then when everything is sold, it comes to the network design team to create a statement of work, to sell it to the customer, and then build the network for them. And
Yeah.
it's when it comes to networking, I mean, there's a demo engineer, POC engineer, consultant, sales engineer, and account manager, all of them working together, versus like what I do today. There's just me and my account manager, or actually it's just me selling stuff. So I guess the level of the number of people that might be attached to a project would differ between the complexity of the product and how customizable it is.
Absolutely.
To that point though, as well, I guess for either of you, I kind of work with these maybe sales cycles or customer life cycles that involve so many different stakeholders throughout the process. Has as you go through it more and more, and as you kind of see kind of what works and what experiences are more positive and which ones are more negative, and try to avoid the more negative ones, how has that relationship been, I guess, between, let's say, the pre-sale side of things and then, you on the consulting side or on the post-sale side? Has that relationship between the two sides become more seamless, or are there still difficulties in the handoff, or challenges rather in the handoff on a deal by deal basis? Just because you've been around in the company for so long, I'm just curious to kind of see if that's evolved over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ever evolving relationship that needs to be built. I've seen, there are pocket of teams, within the company that the sales teams can reach out to, and having that kind of relationship that you are building through the sales engineers and the sales leadership goes a long way. For some of the deals, for example, when I joined this group that I'm in right now, we used to do a lot of network discoveries, network assessments for our customers. And when we had some successful ones, these are the same salespeople who see the value that you have provided to the customer, and they have seen that how that service that we have offered to the customer, which could be a very small deal, it's probably not even anything that really drastically changes their sales numbers that they are trying to make or whatever. But ultimately, if you have fulfilled the request for the customers and you have given a good service, they can just take that piece and trying to position it to other customers in a very effective way. They have already built that trust and credibility, because it's the business is always everybody has their own motivations to do the things, right? They are obviously trying to make the numbers, that's great, but then on your side you are also trying to make sure you grow your own practice of the different products that you have. So the poor service and the kind of the bad experience that you are going to give, it just starts reflecting up. And every time they have a deal that come up, they will be least trying to work the same people or the same team. Even they if they have even couple of options within the groups to go, they will try that route. So having that trust builds over the time. And I feel that a lot of times it's very important to understand what they are trying to do and get that and build that understanding from the very get-go of it, because if you don't have it, none of the future work that you're going to do together will ever work.
That's amazing. I think that's definitely the sign of an experienced SE there. Like not only understanding kind of the value that you bring as like just to your own practice and to as an individual and to the teams that you're working around, but also just recognizing that whole idea of, salespeople, everybody, I guess, is incentive driven. And, if the more incentive they have to work with you, the more likely they are to do so. And typically that's going to result when things are going well in deals coming in, and that just kind of solidifies you in your own position and makes you more valuable and get more experiences and kind of on and on and on from there. So no, that makes sense. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Is there a specific type of sales engineer or sales teams that you enjoyed working with more than others? Like, can you decide who to work with as a consultant?
I generally want to make sure that some of the sales teams or people that I've reached out with, they never think about the execution piece of it, and that's what bothers me a lot. There are times where I've seen the salesperson giving me a bill of material, for example, of certain design that we are putting together, and for him, just scrambling all the stuff from here and there and just making it let the deal get closed and his work will be done. That's what really bothers me. Not seeing the entirety of the customer, that journey that the customer is going to take alongside with that, how the things will be done operationally from the day one standpoint, from the day two standpoint. And that's what really bothers me when the salesperson just thinks only at his point level. The best of the ones that I've worked with, always making sure that anything that you bring up to them, they're always ready to tackle on, right on. Yeah, let's talk about it and things like that. And then some of them that are not so great, whenever you bring up certain, hey, that's not my job. I don't care about that. At least, I'll be done over here. So that's where, I feel that, a lot of customers, a lot of customers feel the pain after actually getting signed the deal. Not the getting signed the deal is the fine, you'll start the journey, but after that, how do you do the things in the implementation side, operational side, support side, the kind of experience that they're getting? Obviously, I know there are teams who are responsible for that, so it's not a salesperson's job as per se, but selling that solution upfront to them, like what makes sense for them, even in the standard silver, gold, or what kind of things that the customer would need, how would they need it, that really goes a long way to making sure that the customer is really happy. Yeah.
You're on mute, Benny.
Sorry, my mistake. Thank you. So you always have a lot of insight just with respect to obviously your own position and knowing what's required on the post-sale and the actual implementation side of these special projects and whatnot. But obviously you have a really good sense too on what happens on the pre-sale side of things as well, due to the fact that you're working with those people and kind of everything that you do relies on them doing things right as well. Have you ever been drawn to the pre-sale side of things, or is there something about being on the post-sale side that you like a bit more? Have you ever thought about going on the pre-sale side?
Yeah, it's funny, I started, having a lot of chats with Ramzi just because of my interest towards the pre-sale sides of it. When I talked with Ramzi, he was like, I told him about my role and the complexity of the things that I deal with. So there is always, I will say 50% of the day-to-day pre-sales work that I do. My title is not pre-sales, but still I'm on the hook of making sure those deals, get won, working alongside the sales team. So the fun part in the pre-sales to making sure what the customer problem is, how you are giving the proposal to them, solving that customer problem is one part of the story, right? And then on the execution side of it, when you are there and solving that, there's another fun to it, right? You are making that project a success, I think having a balance on both the sides is great, at least for this role that I'm in, because I'm not just post-sales and I'm just not, on the pre-sale side. So there is some engagements where I get to be the part of it, where I am working as a, putting some hours, 10 hours, 20 hours in a deal, working through that month or week, and doing some kind of either working as an engagement manager on that particular deal or working as an architect on the high level design of it. And then on the other part, when we are trying to win the deals, for example, is a big RFP that has come up, right? And we have a whole team of, a couple of account teams, some sales overlays that we have entertaining that RFP. They need to, have people like me take on that RFP and work through that RFP for a whole, week or so that we are dealing with. And they're really intense. Sometimes those RFPs, can take, many hours just to respond back, collect those answers, be on the calls with the customers. In the pre-COVID times, we need to have even like travel to the customer sites to, if we are down selected, let's just say at the top 3 vendors as such. So, and they're really fun, being in the executive council meetings with, the VPs and, showing them the whole solution. Some of these deals are really big. Like some of them that I've been on, they are like $10 million, monthly recurring revenue kind of a deals where 200 plus locations, you're giving all the circuits worldwide and things like that. So they're really, really fun to be a part of. And, the most that I've had fun in dealing with is interacting with the customers, and doing the things. On the execution side, it's tough, it's challenging, but they are strenuous, right? Because if you are working on the deals that have already been signed within a certain deadlines that you need to meet them, you need to work with the delivery teams to be on the hook. And more or less, they require you to keep your head down. You cannot, the more you start taking on the calls during the day and things like that, the more distracted you will be. So in the delivery side, I feel whenever I've been on the delivery teams or working through them, I just need to make sure I block off my calendars and just work through the stuff that needs to be done. That's the real action over there.
Do you mind talking about your experience interviewing for an SE role? We can edit it out if you don't want.
Oh, no, absolutely.
You had a kind of a horror story. Well, it's a bad experience. Let's call it a bad experience where that ended up with a bad review for that said company.
No, I won't say it was a great experience, interviewing for the role, because in a way I've given various interviews, but never gave like an official pre-sales interview. So I was not much aware about the ins and outs of it. And especially the company that I was interviewing for, they even had a kind of a shift towards interviewing on a different level altogether. Do
you mind talking about the process?
Absolutely. Let's go for that. So I was reached out from a person. So actively, I was not even looking for this role, right? So a person reached out to me, a recruiter, through LinkedIn. And obviously, my title is a senior lead architect. So that makes it a little bit credible enough to, have some kind of visibility, working for a, good $30-40 billion company. So, whenever, somebody reaches out to, I just want to make sure that, is that one company credible enough? And second of all, is the position enough for me to take on that role, right? I always considered, pre-sales to be in its own ladder, having a different kind of hierarchy. So I wanted to make sure even if I go into pre-sales, I just don't want to go into the junior part of pre-sales entry role, right?
Yeah.
So this was a senior systems engineer, whatever they call it, different, things in different parts of the companies. So this was senior systems engineer that they call. The main satisfaction for me was that this was enough for me to take on. One, because the salary part was enough for me to take on that role, so that even if I jump from my company to this one, there was enough money I can take on, salary wise.
Was it an internal recruiter to that company or an external recruiter who talked to you?
No, it was an internal corporate recruiter of the company.
And you had talked about the salary on that first call, and whatever range they provided was within your range.
Yeah, so generally what happens is, I'm glad that a lot of recruiters do this. And similarly, this recruiter that reached out to me on the very first call, from our conversation, I think he might have even realized that I'm serious and this is a genuine candidate. And he asked, what's the price money that you're looking for? And I gave him the number, right? And the number, he was, everything from that conversation was like, oh, that's in a ballpark, you don't have to even worry about it. So that was like, oh, I might have given, probably a lower bid, or something, because he was so confident and comfortable that I was like, okay, maybe I should have given a higher one then.
So that's the tip that like I always tell people: try not to be the first one to give the number. I'll always ask them, like, I don't know what the salary ranges are for a position like this in your company. Can you share with me what your range is? And if that works, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But like you did, like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's good to kind of figure out early on if you want to go through the entire process or not.
Yeah.
Some people would disagree with me, but that's if you're not desperate and you're okay with your current job, get that out of the way so you don't waste your time.
Absolutely.
So after your first contact with the recruiter, then what happened?
Yeah, so after that, the whole, the shenanigan of interview started.
How many? Can you remember how many?
So let me think about it. So I had, before the panel interview, which is their final, they call it like the final interview with all the people around and all, I had close to, I'll say, 5 interviews, which
that's it. That's not bad.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been through worse.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not bad at all, but that 5 interviews, I really wanted that they'll do it, maybe split up across a day or 2, but like everybody was so segregated in the company and all. That process in itself like took it like 2 or 3 weeks of it, just interviewing for those 5 people in their team.
Yeah. So one thing I would like companies, what I like for them to do is schedule the 5 interviews, maybe like 1 a day or in 2 days. And because generally speaking, you do the first interview with the manager and then they say, oh, you're doing okay, let me put you into the next interview, and then you wait a few days for the recruiter to call you back and then set up the next call. But if they set it up and then it's like the manager says, you know what, I think we're okay right now, they can cancel the rest of the meetings versus having to schedule, and if they want to speed up the cycle because they're trying to find the right contact. Anyways, so I'm kind of ranting right now. So yeah, go ahead. 5 interviews, all the same questions, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, there were some very technically focused interviews where some of them wanted to go much more in technical depth. Some of them were very behavioral. Some of them were very, very casual. Some of them, they even, I was, hey, why do you want to work for my company? And this and that. I was like, he was literally, on a Friday afternoon on a shorts and all. So I said, the company was very, it felt like very, easy to flow kind of a culture and all. So I said, okay, that might be a great place to work in. So overall, I had no qualms about, the interviews and everything that went through, and, they were pretty good. I was even like, once you give an interview, you start feeling, either, nauseatic, like what was that about? And then some of them were like, oh my God, like I had really fun doing this interview, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of, the impression that I got of fun. But the one which really, really bogged down me, or challenged me, I'll say, in a good way, was the panel interview that they had. Which, I at that time I was, even chatting with Ramzi just to understand the flow of pre-sales, never been interviewed with pre-sales. And Ramzi being Ramzi, of amazing, he started, sharing with me the blogs that he has written, and everything was really coming out to be really great, just to understand how to nuance, my answers and flow and everything that was coming. So yeah, so the whole panel interview, what was the different thing that I've never seen before was that they have given me 2 case studies, and some fictional customer having a huge set of requirements, and how would you go about doing that. If in an easy way, I would say some companies that I've interviewed before, they were not that, I'll say, lengthy overall. This was the kind of work that they've given at an easy pace as well, can easily take you around 20 to 40 hours for sure, just to do the kind of research and the kind of things. Now, obviously, everyone works at their own thing. I'm sure some people would have easily, spent like 5-10 hours.
Yours was a lot more complicated. Like you had a lot of slides. They shared with you a lot of slides that you had to go through and a lot of different architectures that you had. It was, from what I've seen, most other companies would tell you, hey, do a demo on this product or something like that. It was a lot more complicated than I've seen. But I can tell when we talked, you put in a lot of work already on it. And then we talked about how you can, like, what's the flow and all that. And, by the end of the call, you were kind of already on top of it. So, so I guess the difficulty of the interviews, of the panel interviews, changes from company to company, but that one was it was more extreme than I've seen before.
And that was I think a trend that is happening as well all across, where I've talked with some people as well, that companies have made this process, especially for these kind of roles like pre-sales or product management or technical marketing kind of roles, very intensive process, because they want you to present something or the other, but the companies don't realize this. These are working professionals who are working 40 hours and 60 hours a week, and having these kind of tough, complex assignments is not easy, and also, a lot of companies, some companies have started even, which is in a good way, a trend happening as well, even compensating you for those hours that you're putting in, the kind of work that you're doing, which is great overall. But for me, I think this was the great part about this was I took this as a challenge overall to even like research about what's going on. They had some newer products offerings that they recently launched and were trying to launch. So research on the market, what was happening and things like that. So overall, I took it a very positive way, went through it. I had my panel interview. So I had like 7 or 8 people in the panel interview, from their director, VP of the senior leadership team, to all the way to the manager who was hiring me, to 4 or 5 folks, all spread across the US, and Canada.
It was all remote, right?
Yeah, all remote. And most of the, I think their company is also remote as well now. So started with the interview. It went, I had done like couple of, like with Ramzi, I showed him and, did my couple of, initial recordings as well to make sure I go through that, present that. But I had really fun. I realized like in the middle of it that I have way more many slides than I was, can easily cover. And that was, I think, one of the takeaways, that I should probably have consolidated a lot, because their content was, they wanted a lot of things. So even if like, even a single question and a slide, that in itself, took off like 10, because if you have like, if you're asking like 15 questions on a panel, you are expecting like 15 slides as per, and if you have an hour or so to discuss that, it's not easy. So and the thing that I got to know through in that interview, that was like the first panel interview of that kind of intensity that they were trying. So I was like kind of a guinea pig for that.
You're the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Well, kind of the direction you got was like, this is the presentation that you have to go through.
Yeah. And the director who was, who sent me that, like the, the whole thing, he said, hey, VB, these are the things that we had. If you have any feedback on, if you want to lower the questions or increase the questions or whatever, after the interview, he asked for my feedback on the interview itself. Like, what did I think about it? So, I mean, they were in their head trying to, make this interview process like more streamlined, because this was like kind of their own one of the first overall.
Right.
But the interview went really good. Like I said, this was again one of those interviews where I had one of the good feelings. My wife came in after that and she said, hey, how did you interview? I said, I don't know how did it went. I'm feeling good. I don't know the result that's gonna be, but I think I did at least my best, whatever I could.
And the result was good.
And the result was good. Surprisingly, most of the companies wait like a couple days or so to, answer, and I was pleasantly surprised that the next day, early morning, the manager reached out and just called me directly and, say, hey, we had really fun interview and all. and things are looking good, so nothing like a verbal offer or anything, but things are looking good. We still have a couple more interviews that we are going to do, but I think we have made up our kind of a mind. I think we just will probably go with you, and something like that. Nothing like probably or whatever, but I didn't even consider this as a verbal offer or anything. I said, okay, whatever that is, things are looking good, positive direction, let me know whatever that happens. That's about it, right? So I said, okay, great. Then so that just gives me enough room to breathe for at least, let's just say, for a week or so. And I said, okay, I'll chew upon that and let it go. And then I was waiting and waiting and waiting for a week or so, and then finally the manager called again, or emailed me, I think, saying, hey, if you have some time, can we chat? And I was like, okay, now the verbal offer comes, let's talk about it and this and that. And then we had a chat, and then for close to an hour we talked on the phone about my offer, not offer, like, for example, that we are finally selecting you, so and so forth. What is the salary that you're expecting, right? Even that kind of a thing, which was already done in the first interview, that was already done.
Yeah.
So I gave him the number, right? And that's where the tricky part happened. And why did it happen, or as I was told, was that generally in sales, what happened is you have a base pay, right? And you get the numbers of, yep. So when I gave the number, the manager thought that was like my TC, the total compensation that I'm asking for, right? And he said, oh, that should not be a problem, we'll take care of that, and all. And me, not being in the pre-sales, had no idea that I should be very, very specific about base pay and the bonus that you are going to get, 30% or whatever the company has, and you should be talking about all of that.
Well, to clarify, you did tell the recruiter like what you want the total, right? But then when you talk to the manager, for some reason, you told him what the base is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So recruiter, it was very clear, but with the manager, I was like, here's what I'm looking for in my salary, right? And somehow this manager thought that, okay, he's talking about the base pay and the total comp, and that's about it. So that was kind of I think miscommunication that happened on that call, or what happened. But I was clear, I was clear in my head, but probably that didn't came up, or what happened. So what happened after that call was done, we talked about for next 45 minutes about the team, the role that I'm gonna be, we even like shared the customers that I'm gonna serve, right, in my region, the biggest ones that they have, and all that. We went too much deeper into the ins and outs of the role and everything. So a day or two after, the recruiter reached out to me now, saying, hey, VB, I had a chat with the manager, and I was surprised to see that this is the salary that we are offering you. Are you okay with that? I said, what? I'm absolutely not. We already talked about it. So his base was like 20-25% less than what I was expecting out to be, right?
Yeah.
And even recruiter said, I actually had a chat with manager, and I was surprised to see, why did you agree with that? I said, I did not agree with that. That the initial chat we had, we talked about what the salary should be, what the salary I'm expecting out to be. And he said, yeah, and that was the same thing I had in my mind, recruiter said. But the manager thought, so let me go back with the manager, talk to him about it, and we'll clear it up. No worries, no problems, and everything will be fine. Great. Okay. And that's where the whole drama started happening. For a week, I was not contacted. I reached out to the recruiter again on LinkedIn, no response, kind of a ghosted out, and at that time, I was asking Ramzi about some salary negotiation and things like that, to understand some of the stuff. But I was like kind of ghosted out for a week or so. And then finally, the response that I got after a week from one of the guys was that, hey VB, everything is great, don't worry about it, you are still our final person, and so forth, don't worry about it. The only thing is, in our company, what we have is a policy that we still have to hire, interview some people just to keep that diversity thing going on. I was like, what? You already like gave me a verbal offer, everything was there, and you are saying that you are still interviewing more people, and you are giving me this BS reason that you need to interview more people. And I was like, I started laughing on the call, and he understood that, that might not fly well. So in the back of my mind, I had this thing, something or the is going on. Either, you know, even the recruiter screwed it up initially, thinking that this might be the number, and he might be giving it. He's based out in one of the East Coast Canadian city over there, right? And obviously the salary range is much higher. And this company is obviously based out in Austin. No, probably a lot of people would know maybe, but obviously these are bigger cities, and I'm in St. Louis, and that could be one of the things, that companies now don't when giving the initial numbers, don't think about giving the numbers based upon the cities, and they are giving this, from big fictional number based upon either Silicon Valley or New York or whatever that is. And overall at the end, to wrap it up, this thing, became a 2 months of a big, kind of a hassle dealing with initial recruiter to the end period, dealing with the, it took it itself, this whole story after that verbal offer till the point I was told, took it like 3 to 4 weeks of, this company giving these kind of, false hopes or whatever that is. And finally, I was told that they actually had to go with somebody in a different, because I was going to be responsible for like 3 or 4 states, and they had to go with somebody in a different state altogether. Where, I mean, literally, ideally, at this particular point of time, it doesn't even matter because everything is remote, and you are responsible for like 4 states. So anybody has to be in one state. How does it matter which state that has to be?
The fun part about this, I'm looking at my our conversations together. I see that I told you, like, right there, it sounds like they're stringing you along. Like,
Yeah,
they're keeping you in their back pocket in case they can't find somebody else.
yeah,
And at that point, we had talked like you should move on and start looking at
yeah,
other jobs. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I'm glad you didn't stop.
Yeah.
And things happen at different companies, and maybe they mishandled it. It wasn't the best way to deal with it.
Yeah,
But whatever. But now you are there. There's a happy ending.
there is a happy ending for sure. So what happens sometimes is when you are interviewing and the results, does not come in your own favor or what you were expecting out to be. You really want to move forward, right? You really want to move forward and not stop. So my wife was like, hey, just take a break, you've been interviewing. So this was not only the one, I'll say, kind of an unsuccessful result. Ultimately, there were other companies that I was interviewing at, and they didn't even went into the final stages as such. Some of them were like the top 5 companies here in US, the biggest brand names that we know of. And I was not seeing the results that some of them were like literally kind of ghosting out after a couple of interviews and no response, and some of them were really professional enough to at least tell you, you are what, not at least giving a feedback or anything, but at least telling you that, okay, professionally. But things were great, so I started interviewing. And for me, here's the thing, right? For me, my inclination was to be in the pre-sales world, but more into the kind of role that I was expecting out to be, not targeting a role which has a word pre-sales into it, but more about can I be into a role which is more to deal with the customers in a way where I can do either pre-sales, or I can do product marketing, or I can do product management. So there were a couple of roles I was open to overall. So there's this opportunity that came up where I applied, and I'm actually, as we speak today, I'm joining Cisco Meraki. and in the technical marketing space. Thanks. So this was the one of the most fun interviews that I've had, and one of the most professional ones. And I've, the kind of people that I interacted with, from all the way to the recruiter, to the, obviously they give me the offer, I have to say good things, but even the people that are interviewing and either getting successful or not getting successful, I'll say the kind of professionalism that I've seen with, Cisco taking on the interviews to the things, I was so pleasantly surprised, and especially when you have already given like close to, I'll say 8 to 10 different kind of interviews in the last few years, in the last year or so when I was trying for this. So yeah, that's the happy ending, for at least.
Good. I would hope that if they weren't professional, you wouldn't have taken the job. So I'm glad that they were. And that's the beauty of it. Like, you kind of, if you have a big enough funnel, as a job hunter, you're not going to get affected a lot if one falls through. Now, like, it's hard because they gave you a verbal offer and like you had your hopes up, and then they kind of pulled the rug from underneath you. But I like the fact that you just kept going and got that momentum back, because they kind of stopped the momentum and you took it back. So congratulations on your new role. I'm happy that you're in a role that you want to be in with a good company.
And I'm having really I'm feeling very optimistic about this role, the kind of things that this role entails, the kind of things that the company is intending to do in the next 5 years or so. So I'm really optimistic about that.
Awesome. Great, man. All right. We have the not so fire round, but let's do it in a fire round succession.
Awesome. And sure. Let's
usually Binny starts us off, but I don't think he remembers the first question. Do you?
It's imprinted into my brain. Though actually we kind of already alluded to it a little bit beforehand. But so yeah, feel free to say the same things or mix it up. What do you love about sales engineering in any capacity?
For me, I feel that the biggest one is, be that, it sounds cliched, and we have heard this thing over and over, whenever the sales engineering word is thrown around, that trusted advisor, right? Whatever, you want to call that. But I feel that the ones who are, the best pre-sales or the sales teams are the ones who really, truly, deeply care about their customers. They're really the pain points, as we know, they say, are you, thinking about vitamins or painkillers, right? If you really understand that painkiller, understand the pains of your customer, and making sure not only the products that you're solving is just making that number, but actually helping them, really goes a long way. And customers know that. They can really, a lot of the customers, you feel that they won't know about it, they know it, so yeah.
That's such a cool concept, the idea of painkillers versus vitamins. Like, never really thought about that in the context of like selling or anything like that, but it's cool. Like, I don't think maybe one would be better than the other, and that like a painkiller could be something that's solving a pain, and then your vitamins are just like value adds maybe for pains they didn't even know they had. That's kind of a cool way of categorizing things, so I like that a lot.
All right. Second question of the day. Now, this is not related to your current job, but it's related to the experience you've had over the last year. You've been through a few interviews. What would you change about the interview process, other than, not giving you the offer and then taking it back?
I think interviewing it is an art. A lot of companies don't spend a lot of time preparing the interviewers, because a lot of times our mentality is that if somebody is experienced, been with the company a lot, they are much more credible enough to take an interview, right? I think companies now need to spend a lot of time building out a kind of a program or a thing within their own company to train people on how to even interview. And it's not an easy thing. It's not something that you learn on your day job. It's not something you learn in college, and it's a thing that can be trained for sure. some things I'm okay, because if you're a technical person and you are taking technical interviews, there is black and white to it, right? You know that okay, this has this answer and you're expecting that answer to be. But a lot of times when I see that a lot of interviews are not just about the black and white, but there is a lot of other shades of colors that comes along, and especially in the behavioral interviews, the kind of personality interviews that you're trying to do. And that's where I feel these companies need to spend a lot of time, because some of the interviews, I'll tell you honestly, like some interviews that I've been in, I knew beforehand, like the person who's gonna interview me is like way younger than me, starting out in his career and interviewing me, which is fine, no ego or anything as such. But when the interviews have started, at the middle of the interview, if you're feeling that your interviewing is kind of like behaving in a condescending manner, or trying to belittle you in something that you don't know, that just demotivates you for the rest of the interview itself. And that's where I feel that a lot of people that I've seen, or especially when now I interview as well, I really want to make sure, first of all, make that person comfortable, right? Because there's so much going on in the mind when they are interviewing, and things like that. This is not a beauty contest or anything, or something like that, where a lot of interviews have become that. A lot of interviews are now more like become like the best actor will win this today, because and a lot of interviews don't realize that. And I feel that if companies do that work, preparing the interviewers and making sure that they are doing a good job, I think that will go a long way.
It's funny you say that. I was I don't know, 5 years ago, I was interviewing a sales engineer to come into our company, and I wanted him to feel relaxed. So I leaned back in my chair and I crossed my arms. It was like, I'm relaxed, so you must be relaxed.
Yeah.
And then my boss walks by, he sees me. And when I walk out, I'm talking like, it wasn't a very positive experience. And the gentleman I was interviewing, I would ask him a question about something and he'd answer something completely different. So it wasn't a great interview anyways. But I told him, like, man, he was sweating. He's like, yeah, you were sitting in a power move. Like, you had a power move. You were sitting like this, and then like, I'm the boss. Like, I didn't mean to make him feel bad. I was trying to help him out, make him feel comfortable. But you don't you never thought about body postures and
right,
how to make people comfortable. So I like the idea of getting people to and teach them how to interview.
Yeah, definitely.
Third question.
Yeah, sorry, just before the third question, I feel like it might be a bit tough to get companies to teach people how to interview. Definitely, like, get interviewers, like give them training to like.
I think that's what he meant.
Okay, fair enough. I thought you maybe meant like get them to be better. Yeah.
No, like they don't want to teach them how to interview for other companies.
Exactly.
I don't think they want that.
That will be bad. Yeah. But like I was talking to my wife the other day, and she just started a new job, and her project got over, and I was like, she said, hey, we have to hire somebody, and she just got her in her communication channel, she said, hey, can somebody interview? And she thought of interviewing this person, because she's been 6 months into the company and all, and she got to know that she needs to go through this training, actually pass a test to interview somebody. And I was surprised to see that, because that doesn't happen in my company right now. And
I don't think it happens in most companies. Is it an HR company?
No. This is I'll say a millennial age consulting company,
okay,
very famous here in US. But the company's practices have evolved a lot, just seeing what's happening. And that's where I think companies need to make sure what's the best way, because you have been doing things from very long. That doesn't mean you are right. And that's where there's a constant way to improve yourself, and that's where companies need to think that as well, like what are the different things that we can do to make our processes better.
Totally. Yeah, the whole prospect experience thing is such an important thing. Like, I mean, it speaks to, even the importance of customer success is obviously its own thing, but in order to have happy customers, you have to have happy employees working with or for those customers. And to get the happiest or the best employees working for you, you want to make sure you attract them, and making sure you give them a good prospect experience while they're still in that recruiting pipeline is super important. So yeah, no, definitely can't be overstated, the importance of being a really good representative of one's company when bringing new people in. So speaking of, I guess, just things that companies should do or that people can do to be better in whatever way, Are there any like books or tools or resources that you'd recommend for people to better themselves or to maybe fast track the journey that you went through to, I guess, to get to where you are today?
Yeah. So from the books perspective, there's no dearth of books, available. Ramsey has a whole list of books from the pre-sales and leadership and on your website. And there is, the one thing I'll honestly say is when you are reading a good book, the first time you read it, you just, glance over it and, you absorb some of the things. It's really important to take on some books that you have read already, and some of the books that are on your list, right? But don't just read them once, right? Read them couple of times, because every time you start reading the books, the second or the third or fourth time, that's where you start, associating your practices to the book's teachings, that things. It takes a lot of time and effort to understand the real essence of some of the really important learnings on those books. Obviously, my perspective towards on how I look at my job and the kind of activities that I do have changed a lot with, the last year I started business school. And the real motivation of business school was not to get a degree. I already had a master's, so there was no real intention of having another degree as such. But the real intention was, can I be with the group of people who have the kind of same thought process, or, where I can talk to them. And that's where I feel a lot of people, especially now remote, do not have that. And it's really important to cultivate that, like, especially what, you have all started with pre-sales, community now. Everybody's in a different kind of a role, in a different capacity. It's really important to be in that kind of role, because when you interact with people, you get to know a lot of things. So that's really important. And that can be either offline through various forums, through various, communities that are there, now a lot all virtually, to be a part of that and talk to people, get to know from them, because a lot of learnings comes actually from talking to other people.
And so if you're looking to meet up with other sales engineers, there is SENY, so salesengineersnewyork.org. Check that out. And if I were to do a shameless plug, I do have a course about preparing for an SE interview, which is the road to sales engineering. So we.thesaleengineers.com/R2SE, the number 2.
Yep.
Check that out, folks listening. Yeah, let's jump on to question number 4, the last question of the not so fire round. Is there a habit you're working on today to help you improve in your professional or personal life?
I guess focus is the one, because a lot of us are distracted now a lot at home. So the one habit that I'm trying to cultivate is to be focused for a short durations of time. I'm doing a lot of work sometimes which takes hours to complete, with presentations that I need to build and things like that. But you get distracted a lot with phones and things like that. So making sure you take your buckets of time and just give your best in that, and then take 5 minutes break, 10 minutes break, do whatever that you want to do. And that's really important. And even if you have, I'll say, good chunk of 4 to 5 focused sessions in the day, you'll be golden. You can still be done around 70% of the work that you really intend to do in that 4 or 5 good focus sessions. The rest of it, half of the time, is gonna be on calls and things like that. And and if you are trying to do multitasking, there are times where we intend to do. I do it myself, but I don't do it at my focus sections. The time when I do it, when I have to be on a call where I have to speak for 5 minutes, but be on that call for an hour. And that's where I can take on those, I have my bike over here sitting with me, where I take on those meetings, a quarterly meeting or whatever that is, and I need to just listen in. I take on my bike, ride my bike for 30 or 40 minutes and attend those sessions. And that's where you can do those multitasking. But your focus sessions, just keep them to yourself, put on a good music if you're into it, and close your door, tell your wife, I'm working for next 40 minutes or 30 minutes, and I need this to be my, the best time of my day. So, and that could be any time that you feel convenient. Some people are good in afternoon, some in mornings, some in like, sometimes, my best times are like after 8 o'clock. Like for me, I'm done with the day. The kiddo is gone to bed. I take on that 8 to 9 sharpest time. I just get done with it, a lot of it in that time. So
nice. You're familiar with the Pomodoro Technique?
No, I haven't. No.
So it's like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Okay.
And you repeat it 4 times, and then you take a 20-minute break.
Awesome.
Generally speaking, when you're in sales engineering, you don't have four 25-minute sections to do. Usually there are meetings. So there are a lot of apps out there available, like timers and all that. So if you want to check that out, check that out. All right. This brings us to the end of our call, VB. Where can people reach out if they want to congratulate you on your new role?
Sure. So I'm active on LinkedIn for the most part. So I can send you, Ramzi, the link. Maybe
I already have it
in the show notes. Okay, perfect.
already.
Yeah.
We'll
LinkedIn is the best way to reach me at. And honestly, some of the people that I know of in the last year or so, especially, with the COVID thing and all, I'm pretty active even right now within my current student community, as well as, I graduated from CU Boulder, so I'm still active over there. So a lot of times, folks reach out to me on LinkedIn, and any way I can help, now, especially, I've done some interviews, so I know a little bit of it. Anytime anybody needs me on anything, I promise I might not reach you the same day or so, but I'll be honest, I would like to at least either help myself or put you in the right direction. And that right direction could be Ramzi or Bini, you.
Nice. Amazing. Well, thank you, VB, for your time. Congratulations on your new role. And whatever bad experiences you've had, it's still experiences that you learn for in the future. And so I'm glad you went through them. And I will see you later. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here. VB, thank you for sharing your story. Not everybody would want to share that kind of story. We learned a lot from working on that together, and we kind of saw the writings on the wall of what's going to happen with that company where he applied to. But luckily, he didn't have just one company in his pipeline. He had a sales funnel. He had a big funnel where he was applying to different jobs, and he found jobs elsewhere, which was great. And that's, I guess, the biggest takeaway that I would say. Don't just stick to one application, interview and then as many places as possible, so that you can have your choice of where you want to go in the end. Thank you guys for listening again. If you have any comments, any questions you want to ask them. Like, I'm here to answer as many questions as possible. I enjoy helping people. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done 177 episodes of We DSEs. So make sure you reach out, ask me any questions you may have, and I will see you guys later.